There we go. Can everybody see that just before I start? I'm assuming so because I haven't got a no.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just want to make sure. So my name, again, is Jeff. Like I said, John mentioned, certified in 1979. Done over 2,300 dives. And 190 of those are actually in British Columbia, which is probably one of my favorite spots to go outside of Ontario with the Great Lakes. I'm more of a shipwreck diver than a underwater down south diver. I still enjoy down south, don't get me wrong, but I still like my shipwrecks. So this picture is actually on the Morale that a friend of mine took many years ago. So let me just start into it. Let's see if hopefully we'll get this working. There we go. That's me again, actually in Newfoundland, but just as a picture. So what I'm going to talk about is the Hideaway. It's a rustic spot just located outside Port Hardy, British Columbia. And this is in the very northern tip of Vancouver Island. The way we get there is you have to get there by boat. This is literally a floating, and I'll show you a picture in a second, a floating resort that is a little rustic for most people, but it's the best tempered diving in the world. The best times to go are spring and fall, because the visibility can be up to 100 feet. We've had it, at least that summer there's a plankton bloom, so it's not quite as good. So where it is, like I said, up here in Port Hardy, just around there. So you basically, the way we get there, and I'll get there, this is actually the resort. It's actually right in the middle of a large bay, so there's no usually problems with wind as far as the resort is concerned. We have had issues. There are, it's the ocean. We do get wind. This is what it looks like as an aerial shot. So you come in here, you're about 5 minutes from my favorite dive spot in the world, and one called the Browning Wall. So the way how we get there is the way we usually do it. So we fly into Comox, which is south of Port Hardy, dive in Campbell River, or just outside of Comox, we can dive with the Sea Lions on the Friday. Then we take a shuttle bus up to the Port Hardy and a sea taxi to the actual Hideaway. Then we dive till Friday afternoon. The odd time at night, we'll have a cocktail or six. And then what we do is take on Saturday the sea taxi back to Port Hardy, and then a shuttle bus back to Comox. Usually there's about a dozen of us that go. And the skiff can handle that much. And then we fly home Sunday. That's the way we go. So if we're lucky enough to get out on Friday, we get to go see sea lions and dive with them. So this is one of the above shots that I've got. So there's lots of them out in this rookery and usually they're pretty good about getting in the water. Sometimes we have lucked out. The one year I went, we didn't see one. And we found out later that there were some killer whales about 5 miles away. So kind of a good reason why they are. They're very playful. I'm sure you've all seen pictures of Jill and Becky have taken where they're just all over them. They're like small dogs. Now, again, we have to get good weather to get there. So another picture taken by my friend Joanna of what the Hideaway looks like. And it's actually floating on logs. And this is the skiff we use. You basically set your tank up. And the nice thing is you don't have to touch your tank after that. John has long whips that you basically pull in the back here. You get off. Actually, our room is over here to the right. And when you're done, he takes it around the front where the compressor is and fills the tanks, comes back around. You're usually running nitrox, running about 30-32%, depending on John, what he's got. Everything is run by generator. So at night, about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, you hear the generator go off, you have no power. But it works out very well. It's rustic, but it's a lot of fun. It's the best diving in the world, in my opinion. And hopefully you'll see some pictures to prove it. This is what a room, basic room looks like. Usually a bed and a half, washrooms over in this area, sink, and it's rustic. But we all go and meet for dinner. There's a spot for dinner, and he has staff that cook you dinner. And breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I should say. And usually cookies. And because it's out in the ocean, it's tidal-based diving. So John will look at the tide tables and say, okay, we're going to dive at 6 in the morning sometimes, or not quite, but or he will adjust where we go based on the tide numbers. And the advantage of going in the fall when we usually we go around Thanksgiving, is that because the tide change is so huge, like I said, the visibility is great. So I'm going to just basically for the next little while just show you some pictures. This is called the Strawberry Anemone. Excuse me, Red Irish Lord. This is a lingcod. In case you guys don't know, this is my friend Joanna on Browning Wall. Browning Wall starts at 0 feet and goes to about 200 feet from what we hear. It is all covered. You can't see the wall. This is all growth here. You literally can't, you just can't. This is what's called a basket scar. So I'm gonna just kind of float around and you're gonna see some close-ups and long ones, some of the better pictures. Jellyfish. We've been lucky enough to see jellyfish, and this is what's called a fried egg one, actually. Obviously, because it looks like a fried egg. This one is not a fried egg just because of the top, and with my friend Joanna. This is a man of war. You can get nice and close, and they're very pretty. They just kind of go floating along. And if you're lucky enough to see them, they're very, very photogenic, as you can see. Wolf eels. Well, a face only a mother could love. But they are this is taken, this was actually a print, so that tells you how long ago this picture was taken. And they are very, very friendly. They will come out. They really like to eat sea urchins. So what we'll do is we'll grab some sea urchins, and they just chomp through them like they're nothing. Another picture of an urchin, or sorry, not an urchin, but a wolf eel. Picture with me very close to a wolf eel. This was again film days. Lots of bulk, lots of kelp. It's great if you're doing safety stops, you can hang on to this stuff. This stuff is extremely strong. Not that you need to, but it's nice at the end of the dive. Most of the dives are done probably 40, 50 minutes, depending on the person. You're diving steel tanks anywhere up to about I think the biggest he's got is 120s. So you've got lots of time to do lots of diving. The odd time you will get into a current when the tide changes, but like any other current dive, you just go with the flow. You don't try and kick against it, which is great sometimes. But when you see that thing you want to take a picture of, it can be a challenge. This is our friendly octopus, the Great Pacific octopus there. And obviously me taking pictures, actually. Again, my friend Joanna took this picture. There they are. They're a master of disguise. And I think everybody has heard, seen, and seen what they can do. And they're amazing what they can do. This guy was just out in the wall. And just, I was surprised that he stuck around that long. He was very, very relaxed, which was surprising. This was taken many years ago. This is my friend Peter Price back in the days. And this was a rather large one. This was actually another film days. So you can tell looking at the equipment, it's a few years old. Because when I started going out west, John, the owner of the Hideaway, had a liveaboard. It was called the Clavella. It was a 72-foot double-end wood boat. It was actually built for Boeing. And he ran that as long as he could. Then with Coast Guard coming in, and there was a hurricane that literally picked up this 60 or 70-ton boat and put it on the dock. So it was damaged beyond repair as far as the insurance company, I believe, was. John's been running out there for probably 30 or 40 years. So he knows the area very well. I trust him. The other resort that's out there is a place called God's Pocket. They run the exact same spots. You'll see them out there diving at the same time. And the odd time you'll have people running day trips out of Port Hardy. Another octopus. Some crab. An enemy. Or nudibranch, I'm sorry. This is a nudibranch. Again, this would probably be a couple inches wide. This is what's called an orange peel nudibranch. This might be about 2 or 3 inches long. And they just sit there and they look pretty. A little shot from a little further distance away. Another nude, this is another nudibranch here. And again, this is all very close stuff. The nice thing about diving out west is it's very, very colorful. You know, this is the colors you're going to see. You know, you dive with light all the time, you're going to see amazing stuff. You know, another nudibranch. You know, whites, oranges, all sorts of different colors. Lots of stuff on the kelp. You're going to find a lot of stuff. This is what they call anemones up here. Same thing you see down south, but made for Canada. Again, on a piece of kelp here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 different anemones. They just sit there. Because I believe they're filter feeders. You know, there's some biologists that probably know more about it than I do, marine biologists, but they just sit there and there's a current moving through so they can filter feed. A crab, a small crab on a starfish. Starfish on a piece of kelp. Crab, very small one. This is browning wall. This is what you're going to see. And this is probably in about 40 feet of water, if I'm guessing, 40 to 50 feet of water. This was taken by a friend of mine, Stuart Selden. You may know of him. This actually was made the BC, when they came out to do presentations, this was blown up and put as a poster behind in their exhibit. So as we keep rousing our friends out in British Columbia, it took an Ontario photographer to get into the British Columbia. But that's what you see, you know, all sorts of colors. And I couldn't tell you everything that's on here except for me, you know. But that's browning wall, which goes and goes and goes. Another anemone here, looking up towards browning wall. This might also be a place called Seven Tree Island, which is another wall dive that you do. And you can actually, if you've got enough time, you can almost circumnavigate the whole island. It's a very small island. Again, browning wall or one of the walls, you can't see anything there, you know. Now we usually do about 4 to 5 dives a day. If you want, it's available. You know, we start first thing in the morning, you know, come back, maybe have some breakfast, then do a dive, then come back, have some lunch, then maybe get a little bit more of a service interval, because the diving is all shallow. You don't have to go deep. So you don't rack up too much residual time. And the odd time we'll do a night dive, depending on the beverage situation. Now, thing about being on the Hideaway, you take your own beverages. If you don't have it, you don't run back into town. You know, the run back into town, depending on which boat you take, can take a while. So the only time if we go back to town is if we have to. And John, in case of emergency, has satellite phones, and they're what we call sea taxis that could come out and get us. My friend Joanna. This is usually where we eat. And John has been lucky enough to get involved in the World organization, where he has a lot of students that come there after school, after they're done school, to work, you know, work for room and board. So when we got out there, we could have, I know one year we had a Belgian chef. He was from Belgium. So it's a lot of fun meeting these kids and listening to all about where they're from. But I think it's it's not the World Health Organization, I should say. It's something else, World Farming Organization or something to that effect. So it's always amazing talking to these kids. You know, you just don't know what they're going to come back with. And they're there to have some fun. They work for, you know, either the cook, you know, clean the rooms, do whatever the case may be, fill the tanks. And, you know, at night when we're after dinner, usually we sit and have a few beverages in this, we call it the shack here. So, but again, everything's run by generator and or propane. I'd like to thank Stuart Selden and Joanna Swan for their photos. You know, they gave me a couple through there, as you saw on their watermarks. Any questions? Yeah, I was about bang on what you wanted. So let me just check the chat here, if I can. More, there it is. chat. Okay. John, if you want to hop in here, you're more than welcome to also. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff, and thanks for giving that presentation and your pictures and the ones from your buddies as well through there. And yeah, there were some great compliments. I didn't see too many questions yet. There was somebody I know that was asking about your equipment, about lights and that sort of stuff.
Most people, when I dive with the camera that I use is a Sony RX100 in a housing, a metal housing. I find with the metal housing, it doesn't fog up as easily than some of the plastic ones. And 2 CNC strobes. I know Stu's using a Nikon. The other fellow who was in that picture is Jed Brittnell, who's published a lot. He uses a Nikon in a amphibical housing with, I think he's using Accolade strobes. I know Stu uses Accolade strobes. Joanna's running a Canon. I'm not sure which one. You know, a good SLR with an amphibical housing. Amphibical is actually a Canadian made out of Montreal. Everybody I've talked to loves their product. There's a lot of very well-known photographers who use their product. Jill being one of them. Becky uses it. Becky Keegan, if nobody knows who I was referring to. Now, as far as the cost, that's the next question I saw, was John runs about $2,500 for the week. Now, that's everything except for your booze and or any snacks you want to take. Normally what we do before we leave on Saturday morning in the shuttle bus is we hit a Sobeys, which is right beside the liquor store. And Comox has a very nice large liquor store, which is very well stocked. It's about a 3-hour drive from Comox to Port Hardy. So we'll usually stock up, head out, you know, and do that. So John's about $2,500. Flights are about $1,000. You're looking at 2 hotels on 2 to 3 nights hotels in Comox, usually Thursday night, Friday night, and coming back on Saturday. So $100 for those. The shuttle bus, I think, don't believe anybody's flying directly into Port Hardy. It's just, there's not enough demand. So Port Hardy is a very small fishing community. It's amazing going down to the dock and looking at all the fishing boats that are there. So that's the biggest thing to do. Now, the fellow, usually Stuart Sullivan, runs this trip. He usually puts it on Facebook. It fills up usually pretty quick because it's just a lot of fun. You get to know people pretty well. You're on as we legitimately kid around, is you're on the raft. So, and we've never had any issues that was anything that major. So, no, screen share, cost. Typical water temperatures, probably in 50s, nice and warm. I would suggest using a dry suit if you're doing 4 to 5 dives a day. That's what most of us are in. I don't think we've ever had anybody in a wetsuit that I can remember that did the amount of diving we did. So most, like I said, it runs Saturday to Saturday. You know, we get there Saturday afternoon and then we leave Saturday morning. So he's got time to clean up and get ready for the next group. Now you could do directly and not do the diving in Comox. You could come up on Friday or whatever the day may be. We had some people do that. The advantage we like about Comox is it gives you a chance to do a shakedown dive. That there's a dive store right there. Then there's a problem, you can go buy some extra hoses, whatever else you may need. The best time to go, March, April, a little bit into May, September, October, November, and I think he even runs even a little longer than that. The problem you've got is, like I said, it's out in the ocean. Getting there, it's across a place called Galetas Channel. It can be rough. We've come back in some waves some days. One year we almost didn't get back. You know, we looked at that as an option because there's a marker buoy out there, and I think the one day there were 9-meter waves, so we didn't move too far. Let's see, best time to go. The other place that is great, I mean, You know, Victoria, I've heard some good diving. I've never done. I've been to Port Hardy, and I've also been over across on the mainland. Vancouver's got White Cliff Park is a very popular spot. I also went up to, it's on this side, and I can't remember the name of it, with Jim Willoughby was diving there. This was back again a long time ago, and that's my first chance to get in diving, and it's Powell River was what it was called. Nice diving there too. Nice thing, like I said, you're diving in the Discovery Passage. There's always lots of movement there, lots of color, lots of color. Camping near Comox, I don't know, probably. So a cost, if I understand correctly, $2,500 plus flight, plus booze, plus hotels times 3 nights. Rental car and gas, you could do that, but we find the shuttle bus more affordable because there's enough room in a shuttle bus to get all of us in there with all our dive gear. So that's what we found. Nitrox, he charges, I think, $100 for the week. You know, because he has to bring the actual O2 on a boat to get it there. But so, and I believe that air is free in that case. But I don't think he even pumps it because the system he's got does a great job doing nitrox, and you might as well, especially if you're diving nice and shallow. It avoids racking up a lot of time. The deepest I'd probably go on a normal dive, 70, 80 feet maybe, work your way back up. On the way back, we have seen whales, we've seen otters, I've been strafed by a sea lion, went out diving there also. I have some video back in the day when I was taking video of a friend of mine who literally got strafed by a sea lion. Came in, came around, and left. Biggest thing I've seen, the wolf whales are probably, when we dove, there's a place called Hunt Rock. We had one called Hunter and Huntress back in the 80s. They're about 6 to 8 feet long, as you saw, back in the picture of. And some whales. We have seen some killer whales come by. John's also involved in a research study with whales. He'll look and say that's canine because they actually have books and it's all based on their dorsal fins, is my understanding. But again, he's been running up there for, like I said, almost 40 years. So, like I said, the reason I've known John for close to 40 years, so that's why I deal with him. God's Pocket is a little more luxurious than John's place. John's is basically it's an old fishing camp that's floating. How would you bear BC to let us come in? Hands down, best dive. I started in Les Escamine. You saw 3 or 4 enemies. That was a good dive. Now you see 3 or 4 before you even hop in the water. The one thing that John's really good about is knowing the tides. I've been on a skiff where he says probably about another 5 minutes because he looks at the bull kelp and says, if it's floating like this, nah, it's not quite. But they're, 5 more minutes it can be because they live and breathe by tide tables out there. Has global warming impacted the sea life? Yeah, we found lately that there's been a lot more fish than we've had before, whether that's because of global warming or whether that's just a cycle of the China, they're called rockfish. I can't answer that because I'm not a marine biologist. But May did get buzzed by a sea lion, which is pretty cool, isn't it? That's Linda. So the wolf eels are cool. They are, sometimes they'll come out. It beats Les Escamine that I thought, you go out east where I thought they were wolf eels. They're not. They're wolf fish. They're nasty. I was diving out in Halifax years ago and was going to go and play with one of the local guys. Went, nah, you don't do that. So, what's the coolest dive you've had and what made it so awesome? It's a toss-up. I really enjoy diving the Ganelda, which is a very technical dive. That is probably my favorite shipwreck in the world. But for marine life and everything else, BC hands down, Browning Wall. No question on that.
Jeff, have you dove in other places in BC? Like there's the frigate out there and the...
Yeah, we did that when we were there. One year when we got blown out on the sea lions, we dove I believe it was the Saskatchewan. We did a dive there. We did a dive also in a place called Copper Cliffs, which is just outside Campbell River. When I first started diving out in BC, we started in Campbell River. Then we finally found out about Port Hardy.
They've got a 737 that they sunk too or something. Or
yeah, I saw that, but I'm not sure where that is. Whether that's down by Victoria or not, I'm not sure. We'd have to look it up.
I think it's off Nanaimo. I don't know if there's anybody on the call here who could say that, but I think it's off Nanaimo.
Yeah. Now, octopuses are kind of cool. We have a little funny story that my friend Terry, who's on the call, also can relate to. Is we actually had Stuart, who had his camera almost stolen by a octopus. He literally had an arm around it, and he had his arm that was anchored into a rock, and he would grab Stu's strobe arm and was pulling the camera into his den. And Stu literally had to put his feet up and pull against it. So it was kind of funny to watch. You know, we couldn't stop laughing just because, you know, anybody else wouldn't have had that issue. Now you can go out on your own. That was one of the next question. I'm kind of watching the chat on the right hand side here. You don't have to have a minimum group to book. If you take a group, you know, I don't know whether John will give you a better deal. The best thing to do is talk to John. Now the cell service is questionable out there. So don't assume that you're going to get it. Same thing with Wi-Fi. You know, he does have some Wi-Fi, but there are times when it's down. He's trying to get people out to fix it as a challenge. You know, like I said, the water taxi probably takes us about 35 minutes to get out there. Now, part of that's because you're going through Port Hardy Harbor. It takes a little slow to get out there. But yeah, and the scenery is gorgeous. The only bad thing we're seeing is as you drive up to Port Hardy, there's a lot of strip lumbering going on. You know, where you'd see lots and lots of lumber. Now it's getting less and less. So cellular coverage. No, we had a couple actually get engaged on the raft, as we call it, and we actually had taken out a sat phone for that reason, so they could phone their parents. So I would say don't assume there's cell coverage out there. If you get to a certain spot, yes. And I know when we go out in the skiff, as you saw the picture of the skiff there, John at times will be holding up his camera, or sorry, not his camera, but his phone, trying to get a cell coverage to get all his texts. So there are times when you may send John a note or a text, and you know, it may take him a couple of days to respond to it because of the cell coverage. So that's that one. Yeah, Starlink. There we go. No, that's the other way to do it. But go ahead, John.
Yeah, I don't know if the question there about Uber is, but there was an earlier question too about was the food all part of the cost, yes. and you were saying that during your presentation, but
yeah, it's all home cooked meals. You know, normally dinner or breakfast will be bacon and eggs. You know, lunch sandwiches, soup. There's always soup on because it's always nice, especially around October. You know, you get out of the water. You know, you've done an hour dive. You've got maybe a 10 or 15 minute boat ride both sides. You know, it's nice to come back to a nice warm soup. Dinner usually is, you know, meat and potatoes kind of thing. It's basic, but it's good, and there's lots of it. You know, and everybody eats together. You know, we hear the dinner bell go, so to speak, and then everybody kind of walks in. It's a buffet style or country style as you like. It's all put on a table. You help yourself and sit down, and you may have a beverage or two, depending if you're doing a night dive. And he's got lots of reading out there, lots of marine books to look at. You know, maybe there are times where you saw something and go, I don't know what it is. He's got lots of them in the shack there to do your research there. A lot of times between dives, we may be editing our pictures, you know, depending on the person, reading, having a nap. You know, 5 dives a day is a lot, especially at my age.
Yes, I don't think you'd want to call Uber if everything's included. So.
Yeah, except for beer. But you always make sure, you know, you take lots of alcohol, you know, because we've been known to have a few drinks at night. Now, if you are a vegetarian, yeah, I don't think that's a problem. You just have to let John know. early enough that he can make arrangements. Because what will happen is he'll come in on Saturday to do the shopping. So he'll go to the grocery store and buy whatever's required, depending on the group size, to feed everybody. You know, lots of cookies, lots of, you know, and it depends on also his staff at the time, whether there's a chef there or who's doing the cooking. And like I said, it's always a lot of fun to talk to the staff because they're from around the world. You never know. Every year you go and go, well, who's going to be there this year? Because they rotate in, they try it. Some people love it. They stay around for a year or two. Some people don't. We've had a lady, Carrie. She was now diving down in New Zealand last time we saw her on Facebook, that started up in Port Hardy. And sometimes they'll come diving with us. They're more than welcome to do that. But I will caution you, do not expect 5-star. You know, this is a floating fishing resort. And resort is pushing it. It's rustic, you know. So people may not like that, but if you want the best diving in the world, to me, in my opinion, you go west. You know, it beats east. I've been diving. I've dove in Nova Scotia. I've dove in Newfoundland. Newfoundland has great shipwrecks. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy being out there. But if I have a choice, there isn't one. I'll go up and see John or and go back and do that. But I will put John's website back up. Let me just go back to it because that was a question. Okay, how long on the boat before return trip to base? So you're usually gone for, like I said, the week. So basically the web page, I'm just going to move it over here. Oops.
Yeah, I did stop your share, Jeff, so
okay.
You may have to share again.
Yeah, basically it's VancouverIslandDive.com. And the phone number here, I'll just put it in the chat so that everybody's got it.
Somebody had, while you're typing that in, somebody had a question about the washroom facilities and hot water and that sort of the water situation.
Lots of hot water. There's not a, you know, I've never had a problem with that. Let's see. Let me just put the phone number here.
Yeah, and if you got his website as well, somebody.
Yeah, that's already there. I just put the website in, but then there's the phone number there. Like I said, John's very well respected out there for his knowledge. Like I said, when you run a boat and now this, he knows the area. He knows where to go and not to go. There's one shipwreck we dived called the Themis, but you can't see much of it. It's kind of all broken up, and you got anemones floating all over the place.
I didn't see that go up in the chat, Jeff.
Sorry?
I didn't see that go up in the chat.
I just put it up there, so.
I don't know if you sent it to one specific person or.
No, okay, I'll just repost.
Oh, there it goes now. Yeah, it went out to.
Pat put it up.
Yeah, it looks like Terry and Pat put it back up.
Yeah, I'll put the phone number back on. You know, now's the time to start booking for next year. You know, let's see, where is it to everybody? How do I get everybody?
Yeah, that went to that looks like Terry put it back up to everybody. It looks like you had just Terry up, but that's okay.
Okay. Terry, sorry. Yeah.
So do you dive right off of the dock, or do you always go out on the boat?
No, usually you take the skiff. It's like I said, it's 5 to 10 minute, maybe 15-minute boat ride. If you go to Themis, it's a little longer. It also depends on the weather. If the weather's not good, there's a lot of places you can go hide. There's a great dive just outside, you know, that harbor. You know, when you come out of the cove, Clam Cove is what it's called. There's a nice little dive right there. There's a wall right there. You know, so depending what you're looking for, but it all comes down to weather and tides. You know.
And somebody asked earlier too, does the floating hotel there get affected much by waves and stuff, or is the cove pretty sheltered?
No, the cove's very sheltered. In fact, if the wind's bad, you will find sailboats, and you know, you wake up in the morning and see 3 or 4 sailboats anchored in there. It is so sheltered.
Yeah, because they're seeking shelter from the.
Yeah, and everybody knows everybody. Everybody gets along very well with everybody out there. You know, it's very relaxed. It's very casual. If you don't want to dive, that's fine too. You can stay and read a book. I mean, there's no pressure to dive. The advantage is you can dive. You know, 4, maybe 5. We didn't do as many night dives, depending on the group that's out there. I find that, you know, as I've been there enough times, you know, I don't mind missing nighttime to have a wabi pop instead. The last time I was out there was 2018. 19, I decided not to go. 20, obviously, nothing. Well, nothing went. Yeah, I think it was 18 or 19 the last time I was out there. And we always go in the fall. As far as the COVID, I don't know what he's doing because I haven't talked to him. I'm still waiting, like the rest of the world, till we can get back to traveling. You know, so it's kind of, you know, hurry up and wait. I don't know whether Stu's planning a trip in the fall or not. If he is, I will probably go back out because I enjoy the commodity also because it's a very small group. Now, as far as flying with a dry suit and gear, you know, you take 2 large bags. And when I fly, I've got 2, basically a Kona-sized bags. And then I also have a carry-on for my camera and then a laptop. So I'm maxed out. Getting to 40 pounds is a challenge, but you try your best. And usually we come in, you know, you play around and go, okay, I'll move some clothes into here or do whatever the case may be. Most people admittedly overpack because you also want to make sure you take lots of warm clothes because, you know, you can have a weather and rain gear, you know. Weights are provided. Yeah, he's got basically a huge weight bucket. You take either, you know, depending if you're integrated weights or weight belt, you know, you just go and say, okay, I need this, you know, grab a bunch and put it on. And that's the also advantage of diving steel tanks is you don't need quite as much weight. But it's also salt water, so it might equal out depending on what people do. And usually the first dives, they would kind of do a shakedown dive to get your weights down. And that's also the advantage of diving on the Thursday or Friday when we go in. You know, they get your weights figured out. So when you get the Johns, you go, okay, I need 25 pounds, 30 pounds, depending on, you know, depending on. So one suitcase for the gear, the other shared with your spouse. You might fit a swimsuit or 2. Yeah. You also got to remember you take a dry suit underwear. You know, the bad thing about diving with a dry suit is, you know, it's a challenge to get everything in and keep under the weight. Because when I flew to Newfoundland as an example, you know, we had 2 large bags, both at 40 pounds. You know, because you're taking, especially in Newfoundland where the water's even colder, you're taking thicker underwear. You know, and I also went out there for 2 weeks, so it was a challenge. But you find ways of doing it. You know, you're not taking out, you know, necessarily a steel backplate. If you are, you're going to carry it on board. That, you know, you watch what you carry on board. But the advantage right now is they haven't started weighing the luggage that you're taking on board yet. You know, because I know probably my camera case weighs 40 or 50 pounds. Or you, like as one guy says here, wear the long johns on the plane. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could do, you know, wear my fourth element on the plane or not, especially the polar stuff. Or sorry, not the polar, but the Arctic stuff. So,
so that brings up the question: what is the water temperature usually?
Early 50s, late 40s. You know, so it's warm. You know, I would still say dry suit. If you flood need to dry your gear, are there dryers facilities to help? Yes. The one thing he's got is he's got dry suit hangers outside. So when you get back, you know, on the dock there, you know, where you saw the skiff picture, you know, you're right in front of your rooms. So there's a chair outside. You take your dry suit off. There's basically a PVC hanger there. You hang it right there. Now, and he's got heaters in the room. So if you do get damp, say your dry suit or your dry suit underwear gets a little damp, you put over the heater for a while, and it does a good job at drying it out. If you flood your dry suit, yeah, there are normally between us all we have about 3 or 4 extra wrist seals, neck seals. When we go out, we kind of, you know, talk to each other and say, well, you're going to take a couple of dry, you know, wrist seals. That's good. I'll take a neck seal. One of the reasons that I went to a replaceable neck seal, Because 1 year I actually did rip a neck seal. We tried to repair it, didn't work. We actually had the guy from Comox put a neck seal on the bus, got it to Port Hardy. John went in and got it, and we installed it, and it's been in ever since. And they also do have, John's got a couple of dry suits there. I don't know how dry they are, but he has some older dry suits there, some Oceaners and some books, if I remember correctly. But I would definitely take your own, because also, you know, it fits, you know. What's the ladder like from the skiff? Fine. You know, what happens is you come along, they'll take your fins off for you and basically hop in. It's long enough that I can get up, and I'm a bigger guy, and I never had a problem with it. You know, he's also had another skiff back in the day that had even almost even a longer one, but you know, I don't know what the status of the, we called the Striker is what it was called, the end of the boat at one time that used for taking stuff diving. But again, you're also in an open skiff, so you always take toques. You know, wear your toques and rain gear. You just don't know. Some years I've never had any rain. I take, you know, rain gear out there, and it never comes out of the bag. It can happen. As far as discounted rates, I don't know. I would check with John.
For non-divers.
Yeah, that's right. But again, big on the raft. Now you can go on the island and do some hiking, and he does have kayaks there. So if you want a kayak, you can do that. So it might be boring for some people, but if you like to kayak and you know, he's got them there, he's everything that's there, you're welcome to use.
Yeah, and I don't want to stop any questions that people have, but maybe Jeff, you can tell some of the people where you've done other diving that you've enjoyed too.
Truck Lagoon. I was there 2007 for 2 weeks. Did two big technical dives a day. It's the history behind it is great. The wrecks are big, you know, 400, 500, 600 feet long. They're metal, which again, I'm what I call a wood guy. I like to see the wood and see the history behind it. The Ganelda, the Arabia is probably my favorite dive. You know, it was one of my favorite dives, Horse City, because I spent a lot of time in Tobermory. I used to have a cottage up there and have spent, again, many years up there. But if I had to pick, I enjoy going down south now. As we get older, the dry suit's getting, you know, it still fits, and it's still nice to get into a nice 3 mil suit and hop in water in 82-degree water. As far as the next question that came up, single tanks, dives only. Yes, he doesn't have any twins. I don't think there's any way that he can twin them up easily. If you want to do deco, you're on your own. But understand, you're a long way if something ever happens. You know, and we all maybe got into a little deco, because John's comment is, you are all certified divers. You know what you're doing. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Going to the bottom of Browning Wall, probably not a good idea. You know, 200 foot. They're all DIN valves, but he does have the adapters with him. So, you know, you can switch them back easy enough. So, and the advantage of steel is, like I said, it's heavier. You can get a bigger tank. You can dive 100, you know, no problem. And most people, you just grab it when you get there. You set your tanks up. You don't touch them until the end of the week. You leave everything on there, because John's whips go right onto the boat. You just fill them from there.
Well, that's great, Jeff. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
As we're coming up here onto an hour, I don't want to keep people longer than expected. And I thank you very much for coming out. And I know you've offered to do something else if you can put something together for one of the other trips. That would be cool too. Sure.
Just let me know. And you know, I like what you guys are doing. I mean, you know, we're all trying to do what we can to get through the to get through the pandemic, and hopefully by the end of this year we'll be out traveling somewhere.
Thank you, Jeff, for sharing this information. It's great to see what Canada has to offer. It's wonderful to see the life out there. So thank you. For those who want to keep in touch with our club, obviously we don't have a pool, but as John had mentioned earlier, we do have an amazing pool every Thursday night. It's great for training. It's at the Etobicoke Olympium. When things are back, we'll be in there. But to keep in touch with us, you can go to our Facebook page, Ontario Underwater Explorers on Facebook. And anytime we've got sessions like this that we're going to open up, pretty much we're sharing all of these types of sessions that we're having with the extended scuba community. So you'll see it posted there. Go to the page and just have a look-see and sign up, and we'll share it with you.